Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission for Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. I'd like to open the meeting at 7:30. May we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And may I have roll call, please?
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Ms. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Hara?
Here.
Mr. Kucera?
Here.
Ms. Lalonde?
Here.
Mr. Nushai? Ms. Redmond?
Here.
Mr. Solomon?
Here.
And Mr. Timlin? Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is approval of tonight's agenda. Does anyone have any problems with tonight's agenda as it stands? Seeing no problems, I will approve it as it is. And we will move on to number 5, which is approval of the regular meeting minutes from September 9th, 2025.
Motion to approve meeting minutes of September 9th, 2025.
Second.
Motion support. Anybody have any changes, corrections? Everybody happy with it? I'll take roll call on that, please.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch who seconded that.
Mr. Hara.
Thank you. Ms. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Ms. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Redmond?
Yes.
Mr. Solomon?
Yes.
And Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 6 is public discussion. Is there anyone from the public wishing to opine on anything whatsoever? Going once, twice. Seeing none, I will then close public discussion. And we will move on to agenda item number 7, which is discussion of the zoning amendments and the master plan implementation. So this is an item we're not voting on tonight or anything else. We're just discussing this.
Yeah, that's correct. You're unlikely to be voting on anything tonight. It's mostly discussion, a little bit of direction setting, also some prioritization. So depends on a little bit on the topic. So we started out with a few kind of tweaks to the 3 downtown area districts to talk about. Beginning with the actual city center district, we have a rear setback in the city center district. It's by far our most compact development district. The existing buildings largely take up the entire lot. Most of the exceptions are on the west side of 14 Mile, like 3 Cats, which has space on the lot behind it. District currently has a 10-foot rear setback, which increases to 30 feet when there's no public alley. That's completely reasonable when the use or district behind the building is zoned core residential or R2, but it doesn't work very well when the property backs up to another CC or CMD zoned property. The same comment actually applies to the CMD district itself, which has the same rear setback standard. We've run into this problem particularly when we deal with the corner lots at 14 Mile and Main Street, where you just have like serious constraints on space. And there's not really an alley behind most of these buildings, so you wind up with this 30-foot setback that takes up like a third of the depth of the lot, basically. And all that's behind it is another very similar commercial building. I definitely think we should keep the 1030 standard if the property backs up to a district that's not CC or CMD. There's really no reason to change it in those cases. There are a few properties, where you're just simply never going to be able to meet that rear setback because they're boxed in. Where for the southeast corner of 14 Mile and Main in particular comes to mind, but there's quite a few others around downtown. I think lowering that CC or CMD to CC, CMD rear setback to 5 feet would be a pretty reasonable adaptation of the ordinance to the actual conditions of the city center area. But I'm curious about your thoughts on that and whether or not that's something you'd be willing to entertain.
Is that for, you said you're okay with keeping it at 30 if it backs up to something other than CMD and
Yeah,
CC?
exactly. If it backs up to like R2 or something, then yeah, let's just keep it at 10/30. But if it's literally city center backing up to other city center
Or city center to
or CMD, yeah.
CMD. So, what is the setback right now on those properties that you were referring to? Like, what is their like grandfathered?
Some of them don't have any at all.
Yeah.
Others have, and I think the one across the alley from Sabbath is like 3 feet right now. There are a few buildings that have kind of the drive lanes for the public parking lots behind them, and some of those go kind of right up to it. Others are more like 10 feet away. It's a little bit of a grab bag,
Yeah.
but particularly on the northeast side of that intersection, the buildings that front on 14 Mile and then the buildings other than Byland and Cashmere that front on Main are all right to the rear property line.
Other than,
Except for the corner lot, which has that weird little indentation where it doesn't, it's set back from the alley a bit.
so what would the proposed new setback be for alleys then? Like, does the alley count as part of a setback? in that?
Yeah, it'd be 5 feet from that alley, still, because we're not differentiating in the suggestion here. You're 5 feet from the rear property line if you're butting up against CMD or CC.
Or an
And
alley? Like, because the alley, okay, so the alley, if
the alley
is
would have to
backing up
be in
CMD.
CC, yeah,
Right,
exactly,
gotcha.
right. If you have an alley that is, that you're across from CR, say, then the 1030 would apply.
So how many, I know you can't give me an exact number because you probably didn't go downtown and count, but how many properties would that bring into compliance? About, like, is that looking to bring a significant amount of properties into compliance to where you feel like they'd be able to do something more with?
It would
then?
definitely bring a lot of properties into compliance, yeah. It would give a few more, more latitude to like add that walk-in cooler kind of thing that we see a lot of restaurants adding as well. Because they're kind of up to the 10 right now, and they would need to go a little further, or they're, and you've definitely got a lot that are right there. So you'd still have a few non-conforming properties if you left it at 5 to the alley. But you would definitely bring a lot more of them into compliance. And if you've got a situation like across the alley from Sabbath where they wanted to replace that building, they would be able to still use most of the lot like the current building does.
The only hesitation I would have is when it gets brought in by way of PUD and all of a sudden we're backing up to a residential and they're looking for a mix of these essentially variances, right? What would prevent them from going to ZBA? Because wouldn't that be a hardship that they can't really meet if they were to do something like that and just be able to go to the ZBA?
Yeah, the thing about the rear setback variances in the city center district is we have taken a look at the history at the ZBA, and it's pretty much an automatic grant. Like, they always get the rear setback variance, so it's kind of like, why do we have that setback in these situations if the ZBA always grants the variance? Because there's always a practical difficulty or hardship in play when you're working on one of those properties. kind of doesn't really make sense to keep the standard where it is if they just always get the variance.
I get that, except for we do open things up a little bit to people being able to manipulate, not, manipulate's maybe not the right word, but like play with the ordinance in a way that it was not intended, I think. Do you have, being our liaison?
I don't recall any, I
I
haven't
don't,
seen any
since you've
cases,
been on
Yeah.
there, I don't
so
think
I'm not-
anything's come
yeah.
through, yeah.
Yeah, I can't speak on that.
But like, would you get annoyed on ZBA if these were coming in front of you?
I wouldn't say
or-
I would get annoyed, I mean, I'd like to hear the case, but I don't know.
Okay, I
it's
guess
a
do you find
case-by-case
value in
basis.
us doing an ordinance versus it going in front of ZBA? I'm just trying to see the value of one versus the other. Not to put you on the
I
spot.
don't, yeah, I'd like to talk about it more, and, yeah, see the reason for it. I don't know. Put me on the spot here.
Sorry.
Just-
If we did it just for corner lots, does that compartmentalize the risk?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I gathered from Joe that it was primarily, or I guess especially concerning for corner lots.
It is especially concerning for corner lots, definitely. Certainly, it affects lots of other lots downtown, using the word lots a lot.
Other zones, other areas, yeah.
But yes, it does definitely affect other properties, but corner lots are particularly constrained.
And what is the rear on a corner? What is the rear setback on, for example, the Pizza Hut?
That depends on how the primary frontage is established. And generally, that's established at the time of site plan approval, and it's usually where the address goes, would be your front. So on the Pizza Hut site, you're likely going to have 14 Mile established as the address. We've had somebody come in with a conceptual plan, and they were looking at 14 Mile as their front. So your rear then becomes the north part of
In that case, is that an alley that separates the Fabricator to the?
No.
I
No, there's not one.
don't believe it is, no, it's, because there's, the lot line is right at, it's basically at the wall of Fabricare, and there's those three weird parking spaces on the side of Fabricare, and you actually have to drive through the other lot to get to those three weird parking spaces.
Right.
Yeah, Fabricare is actually a good example of a building that would, I think, become more compliant if you did this.
In, one, this was brought up to us to discuss by way, because it's in our master plan as part of these studies. But also, are you seeing, you mentioned coolers and stuff, are you seeing a lot of businesses that are feeling like they're asking for those types of things, like the coolers?
Yeah, we are seeing more restaurants in particular asking to put things like that on the backs of their buildings. I think there have been some changes in that market in terms of what gets sold to restaurateurs, I think, and that's part of it. But also, a lot of people come into these older spaces and they're looking for, well, how can I make this kitchen the most practical possible layout? And that means taking out that rectangle that's budged into your kitchen and putting it outside so that you can square off your kitchen. And now you've got better circulation through your kitchen, and the freezer is kind of off to the side
Yeah, I
now.
believe we did that with Clausen Grill. They have one. Leon Lulu's and Vigilante applied for it. I don't know if they put it up yet or not.
Yeah, we've had a few.
In those, in that particular area, are there established utility easements, though, required?
Well,
'Cause it's a
really,
residential behind it.
it depends a lot on where you're talking about. So where you have the public lots, generally speaking, there are utility easements. The utility easement, let's talk about above ground. The utility easement for power lines behind Noble Fish and all that is along the edge of the alley. It's, I want to say it's along the edge of the alley on the other side of Main, on the north side as well. The power lines go through the southwest lot. I think the easements are actually in the parking lot there. And then I think it's also on the edge of the alley on the southeast side. Let's just talk about the southwest. So yeah, the power lines are generally on public property. And then as far as what's underground, it's most likely running through the alleys for the most part, or under the street out front.
Well, in the case of the city center that's north of 14 and west of Main, that is where city center abuts to core residential. I think those easements are behind that, so it had to be 6 foot regardless, right? That's typically what I recall.
Yeah, I'd have to
for 6
look.
foot.
I'd have to look. But yeah, I do think part of the easement's in the alley and part of it would be on the properties.
So, yeah, so instead of taking it to 5, we'd have to at least consider, those existing easements, which could possibly be 6 to 10 feet.
Yeah,
depending on what
an
the
easement
corner
might
is.
place an additional constraint on the property,
Right.
definitely, yeah.
And that would supersede
It would
ours,
supersede,
right?
because if they're not allowed to build anything there under the terms of that easement, then they would have to meet the easement as well as our setback. So if the easement exclusion area is gonna be greater than our setback, they'd be doing something greater than our setback.
Question came up about, your corner lots at like 14 in Maine. Are there different restrictions for corner lots in the city center district than the rest of the buildings because of their anchorage?
No, not really, because they all get built up to the front property lines. They can get built up to the street side property line as well. You would have, where you actually have like a new building going in, you are going to have an established rear that would create a rear setback. So it would be cutting into more of the lot than if you've got like a narrow interior lot. You'd still have a small setback at the end of that narrow interior lot, but it definitely takes up less of the land overall, because usually you've got a situation where the corner lot's longer one way than the other, so it's a little bit about how you establish your front, but also you typically have a continuous building wall in downtown. So if you have to establish a rear somewhere on a corner lot, then you're going to wind up with a gap in the building wall. That might wind up getting used for something good, and it might wind up just sort of becoming dead space. It kind of depends on who's developing the property, I guess.
I don't mean to take us in all different directions, but when we've talked recently about having the fridge storage as, it's listed as an accessory use, right? Joe, is that what we're defining that as, like an accessory?
Well, when it's built onto the main building, it has to meet the standards for the main building.
Okay.
So any setbacks or height limits and other things like that, it's sort of treated as part of the principal building, even though it
Yes.
is kind of a tack on.
Because I was, I don't know that we have a whole lot of standards for those, and I don't even know, I'm sure that the Food and Drug Administration has oversight there as well, but I could see that, we've had issues with certain areas and trash before, and I'm wondering if it's something, if we're gonna look at coolers going in the back, we might wanna look at having maybe some standards for for the operation of the fridge? Unless they're only operating it from within the restaurant itself?
Typically, they're not accessible from outside the building. You can
I
only
thought there
access
was
it
one that
from
they had to go out the
inside.
building to go into. That's not, maybe I'm not recalling that right.
Yeah, I don't know that we have any of those, but yeah, they are typically accessed only from inside the building.
Okay.
I think that's health department.
And I think the one you're referring to is Grand River, and they've got that weird little alley between the Grand River space and Clausen Jeweler. So relevant, but not the exact same, because they're not going out to where the public can access it.
Oh, okay, so that would already be a restriction that we have
Yes.
then? Okay, all right, then that resolves my question, thank you.
I mean, the only thing I'm thinking of is on the Pizza Hut property in particular, that alleyway that goes between Mojave and Pizza Hut is already pretty narrow. So if this aggravates that problem, if we somehow treat Main Street as the datum or the front, which makes the rear what lines up against the driveway to Mojave, it's a little tight there.
You'd be 10 feet from that alley, yeah, because that is a public alley there.
Yeah.
Which, 20 feet, 18 feet, something like that.
It says 20, but it's probably a little bit smaller.
Yeah, it's officially 20 feet wide. That's officially.
The alley
20
itself
yeah.
is 20 feet wide?
But that wouldn't even be the back in that situation.
It'd be side.
That'd be side.
It'd be a
Side
side
setback.
if they
It's 14,
if they establish 14 mile as their front, it would be a side, yeah. Yeah, as of now, it's.
That's where their
it's
address
14,
lies, at
yeah,
14.
because
Okay,
Pizza Hut was 20 West 14 mile, yeah.
In the case of a corner, I mean, does it make sense to make an exception for any setback rule, just because of, like you mentioned, the dead space that could be created? You know, if you're trying to build up the liner of the downtown area, and you're forced to have a 5, 10 foot, whatever setback, kind of, you know, killing that objective.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you could look at having an exception for corners. And I guess if you were just gonna limit it to an exception for corners, you'd just basically have everybody else going for a variance if they needed one.
well, okay, so sorry, again, I don't mean to trail differently, but when I hear you talking about going 5 feet to the setback at the alley, what comes to mind is pedestrian safety and bike safety. If the build two line is 14 mile, then it does seem like if cars are accessing that public alley, is that something that we should be concerned with? Because a lot of times if those buildings are at the lot line, you're not seeing somebody until you're pretty much in the road, right? Especially with, the cars parking on the road. I would just be concerned of, we have corner clearance. I know it doesn't count, it's not, city center is not a corner clearance 25, but I do want to caution that too, right?
Sure.
Do you find that for most cities that have, because I know it's very common in downtowns, right, to have that. Does a lot of signage usually help drivers know that, pedestrians, is that something that's easily resolved? Any concern about that, or?
I mean, there are different ways to handle it. I've seen the convex mirrors and things. Yeah, it is sort of a common thing that you see in downtowns and other built-up places where, particularly older ones, where everything was just sort of built, probably prior to zoning in a lot of cases. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to cause that many problems, but I do see what you're saying about, generally you want to be able to see a little
pedestrian,
ways,
yeah.
as you're coming out onto a sidewalk. I mean, you kind of hope people will be careful, but you never know.
Especially if it's a public parking, right, not a private parking, where you've got people coming in and out to many different places maybe not many, but, the places that are established there. Maybe just something to consider. I
Sure.
like the idea of those reflection mirrors or whatever I forget what you called it, but I mean, truly, those would be great.
You mentioned earlier that odd-shaped building, that little triangular wedge on the corner of 14 Mile, and I think it's the Bowers there. It was a gas station at one time.
Oh, yeah, the one yeah, on the south side of Bowers and Maine.
Yeah, do we know what's in there now? Is that privately owned? Every time, I don't see any signage on it.
It's privately owned. I don't know what's in
It
there.
looks like the guy's rebuilding snowmobiles or cars or something in there, but it's odd that it's almost like a private garage in the heart of downtown.
Yeah, well, it used to be
Yeah, it was.
long ago.
Couple guys.
Of course, the Pizza Hut site used to be at Texaco. But that was a long time ago. But yeah, I have no idea what that
Yeah,
space
there's
is
no
being
signage
used
on it or
for.
anything. You have to look through the window to see what's going on inside. It just seems odd to me. It's like some guy just building stuff in a garage, right?
It's paying the bills, I
downtown.
guess.
I've always thought that would be a really cool, like, walk-up window kind of restaurant, like, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
like a
it's
street
got the
kinda-
space out front, you can put a
Yeah.
few tables there, like,
What an idea.
it would
Yeah.
really be good.
I think we had a record store there back in the 50s or so. You could go up there and listen to some songs and buy records from them.
Nice.
It's changed over a lot over the years. It's just a odd-shaped lot and an odd-shaped building.
It is, yeah, it's pretty weird, relative to the rest of the stuff around it, yeah.
What spurred this conversation? Just,
This was really, part of it was when they came in for that building across the alley from Sabbath. And I don't think they ever applied for a variance, did they?
They're reconsidering what they're doing.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out if they're actually gonna do it because,
we approved that, right?
we did approve it contingent on a variance, of course.
You're talking Weiss.
Yeah, but they have not gone to the ZBA yet, well, as you know. And Evan's the ZBA liaison for our new members. It's just, but yeah, they haven't gone to the ZBA yet, and they're, I guess, considering what their path forward is. But that's one where it's kind of like, well, the building is already 3 feet off the rear property line, and like why would we apply a 30-foot setback to this?
That definitely doesn't make sense to do that. And were they talking about taking the whole building down or?
Yeah, they were looking at replacing the
okay.
building, because I guess the brick wall is, it's not structural, it's like a hung brick wall, and it's not in good shape ultimately.
that's
So
too
they,
bad.
they were looking at restoring it originally, and then when they got inside, they were like, I don't know. So,
Yeah. Huh. I support the idea in general. There are some things that give me a little hesitation to do a complete.
well, what I can do is flesh it out and kind of maybe put a little map together to say, like, here's where this would actually make a difference.
Yeah.
And here's the difference it would make. And then we can kind of make a decision on that.
I wish we could take tours as a commission.
Yeah, it would be nice
You
to be able to do a
know, get
walking
boots on
meeting.
ground would be nice, yeah.
Yeah, I've had that thought
Really?
many times,
Yeah.
where it's just like, why couldn't we just be in the field right
Yeah,
now? But it's hard to televise a meeting in the field.
Right. Come on, Nick, you could put us on YouTube, couldn't you?
Borrow a body cam.
Yeah, right, yeah, the cops are right there. We can-
I have a stupid question. When you say it'll bring a bunch of different facilities or businesses or lots into compliance, does it matter if they're grandfathered in? I mean, like, just so you can check a box and say, yeah, you're in compliance? I mean, what is their, like, their concerns that there may be things we're not thinking of, or, I mean, their hesitation on way things could be manipulated in a manner that was not necessarily what the intent was, but what's the risk? I guess we're talking about, here's a benefit bringing into compliance, who cares? I mean, yeah, you care, but who cares? What's the risk? I mean, what concern do you have that we've maybe not talked about
I mean, if it's just confined to CC or CMD to CMD or those two districts to each other, I don't have terribly many concerns. It's really pretty consistent with everything that's already there. We have lots of, 0 rear setback buildings. I mean, that large building on the southwest corner, that's 0 setback. It's right up to all of its lot lines.
I mean, is there any concern, you have standalone building, like, we keep going back to the Pizza Hut site, but most of the buildings are, this continuous building structured in the
Sure.
core. I mean, there's always potential that something like the Pizza Hut could go away, and it did. But is there concern if you had some of like those core larger continuous buildings, say something crazy happened and a developer came in and they wanted to buy the entire whatever, and it all fell into place, and then we have this ordinance now, and something that we never thought would ever happen is now happening. Is there a concern that they could take advantage of that change when you never thought that area was ever going to change because it was a big continuous building? You never thought that it was going to disappear.
Yeah, I mean, well, right now, you'd wind up with something pretty different because you have to establish a rear somewhere, and that's going to be, if there's an alley, 10 feet or 30 feet, if there's not. If you were to change that to a smaller setback, you'd wind up with a different final product that was closer to what's there already, if you've already got the lot pretty much fully covered. I mean, also, if you have a catastrophe right now, we have non-conforming regulations that if a building is destroyed over some percentage of its replacement cost, then it can't be rebuilt except in compliance. So if you've got a non-conforming building, all of a sudden you're looking at like a 30-foot rear setback where you didn't have any rear setback before. So ultimately, you're probably going to be at the ZBA saying, well, I had a building that covered the entire lot. Why can't I rebuild a building that covered the entire lot when all my neighbors have buildings that cover the entire lot? And almost certainly that's going to be a variance that's probably going to get granted because you wouldn't be granting a special privilege to somebody because everybody else has that condition.
Gotcha.
Can I speak to the other side of that? Just because I had the concern on the other side of being taken advantage of. And I don't even like that word because I don't necessarily, it's not really being taken advantage, it's utilizing things for their benefit, right? And I don't blame them for doing it in the future, anonymous developer. We've had quite a few, I don't know how many PUDs we've had. Gosh, it seems like so much more than that, doesn't it?
It's just that we discuss
There's
each
only
one
two.
of them like 6 or 7 times.
It's going on forever.
So with the PUD, and Joe, correct me, maybe there's no concern here, right? But the PUD kind of allows developers to mince a different zoning together, and it gives them the ability to develop a typically harder to develop product that doesn't necessarily fit the code for that area. So it's supposed to allow for ingenuity and development, but sometimes we do see other parts of other ordinances being brought into those PUDs and they weren't intended. Like, so that my concern would be that maybe they are doing a PUD in the city center or in the CMD, and they're like, oh, but we want to take that part of the CMD ordinance, even though you're backed up to core residential, that's just part of their PUD plan, and it's something that I guess I don't know necessarily that we can say, full stop, can't even bring it into a PUD, or not, but that would be my concern.
So, well, I mean, they could do that under a PUD now. They could say, well, we want a 5-foot setback from the
But
rear.
they don't have an ordinance to bring it in with.
They also wouldn't if they were backed up to R2 and CR because that's still got the 10 and 30. So your baseline setback underlying the PUD that they want to do is still the 10 and 30. That's what you're measuring them against. They could say they want the rear setback to be whatever they want, And it's still a negotiation as to whether or not you're gonna let them do it under a planned unit development. The fact that it's, 5 feet under other circumstances doesn't really come into it because that's not the standard you're measuring them against. You're
Well,
still
but-
measuring them against the 10 and 30.
But we've had RM2 be used, and we only have one building that's RM2, right, as a density.
Yeah, and that's probably something that we ought to look at the actual PUD language and
Yeah.
see what we need to fix there. There's some odd stuff in there.
Well, there
and-
is, and maybe if we address that, I'd feel more confident, right? But for right now, even if we have an underlying established zone that sets precedent for density and setbacks and things like that, somehow that's one of the things that is first compromised, it seems. And all of a sudden, RM2 was intended to be the city high-rise, the senior high-rise, and not other developments to go like that far in density. But it does work to people's advantage if they bring that into a planned unit development. So hopefully, that's something maybe as we fumble it around and, we can kind
Yeah,
of look at that.
I will say that making this change wouldn't really change anything about the way you can go about a PUD. It wouldn't really make any difference to have this standard in place versus the one we have in place now. But we can certainly think about looking at the PUD language and seeing if we can improve that.
Because there aren't any corners that back up to core residential or R2, right? The corner, when you say the
No.
corner lots, you're saying Main and 14.
Yeah, none of the main and 14
Right.
corner lots back up to any of those districts. It's all CMD and CEC.
The way I look at this is, this is an opportunity, if we want to take advantage of it, to change the ordinances in a way that directionally, as the future progresses and buildings come down and new buildings go up, that we can improve something that we wanted to be improved, that we can't today because all the buildings are there. So I don't know if we can do that or not. But the alleyway, between Broadacre and 14 Mile,
Okay, I know.
I don't know if anybody would complain if it was a little wider. And if there's any way that this conversation can drive a setback improvement that, encourages future developments to respect a wider setback so as to allow that, I don't know if this is the place to have that conversation, or this is the topic to have that conversation, but, there's an example of something that, pie in the sky someday, far from now, maybe the ordinance drives a developer to do something that is strategically in our long-term, wish list.
You said Broadacre and what? I'm sorry.
14 and Broadacre.
14 and
I mean,
Broadacre.
the only
Oh.
counter to that
The alley
is,
running behind
just
the
by, that doesn't,
the end of the
even if you
water.
were to change the side yard setback, that doesn't guarantee of use of it, though. It's still, it's still private property.
Right, yeah, you're not actually adding to the alley.
There's an easement to it, though, right?
Well, the alley is actually public property. It's a
Right.
right-of-way,
The alley is.
yeah.
But increasing the setback doesn't change anything in terms of the ability for the public to use it.
There's no easement there, there's no,
No, it's
No.
okay,
property line up until the easement.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, if they were doing, let's say, a planned unit development, and you were concerned about something like that, that could be part of your negotiation, and you could say, well, can we get a little extra space to work with here in exchange for something else? But for most by right development, yeah, it's just gonna be,
Yeah, well, I'll say what Commissioner Redmond said. If you could help us just flag the properties that would be immediately brought into compliance with a 5-foot setback, and then highlight, 3 or 4, whatever properties are still in play, like Pizza Hut, And a visual with just a box showing the current 10 feet and what would be a 5 feet.
Yeah, and it'd be pretty easy to just show like which parcels would be unaffected because they back up to CR and R2 or whatever they back up to.
Yeah.
Can I ask another request with that? With our consideration of possibly doing an under, building parking, if that was to abut the alley, let's say we get a PUD there and there's an alley, how would that affect that setback for, if we were putting even the half under parking there? Is that something that we should consider? If a space is being used as parking, should we consider that it should have different than a 5-foot setback or some type of clearance there? Just kind of throwing that out.
Okay, I understand the question, so
Okay.
I can make sure that I
With the
include
parking area
something.
abutting the common area.
Right, so essentially you moving in, a foot out of your driveway and you're in the alley, right?
Right.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but something to consider.
Okay. Move on to the CMD district stuff. The first one pertains to the front setback along East 14 Mile Road in this district. So it's really where Old Port, Renshaw, the building with the drive-through next to Renshaw and House of Optical, that area. This is the only area we're talking about, plus the vacant lot across Pear. The front setback in that area is 45 to 65 feet. That allows for 1 or 2 bays of parking in the front. With 45 feet, you'd get 1. With 65 feet, you get 2. That was put in place because there are already buildings in the area with roughly those setbacks. Some are a little bit out of that range. Old Port in particular, I think, is a little further than that. In general, that does kind of give the area a different character than the rest of downtown, where buildings are up to the front lot line. More to the point with a lot of the things that we've discussed recently, if any building were to be, let's say, taken down and replaced there, it pushes the construction back from the street closer to the residential development behind it. And I think that's more of what we're trying to avoid, is we're trying to get the buildings further from the residential development. So I just wondered if we should discuss changing that setback to match the rest of the CMD and CC districts where things are up to the front of the lot rather than pushed back toward the rear of the lot.
And we discussed that years ago, looking at that, the buildings have setbacks. The Clausen Kitchen is back off of Main Street. It has a bit of a yard in front of it. Michael's Party Store is parking in front.
Yep.
And we looked at places like that, and the object was, let's try to get them all flush. But how do you go about doing that? You can't force the business into doing that.
It takes time. It's really a matter of when someone comes in.
You simply wouldn't
then
approve a new one
you
that
get
way.
one building up, and then over time, another building might come up, and it's just a matter of waiting it out, essentially. And it might take a long time.
But Joe, wouldn't that make all of our buildings non-compliant in spirit of our previous conversation about bringing those in city center into compliance? This is gonna bring all those out of compliance.
It would make them non-conforming. There are some ways you can deal with that, though. You can sort of add language that essentially says that you're allowed to add on to existing buildings in a compliant way or something. So you could add on to the front of that building if you wanted to. that's not uncommon type of language to put in there. There are lots of ordinances, for instance, that, like, let's say a residential area is transitioning to more of a commercial area. And the ordinance, it basically allows existing single-family homes. You can't build a new one, but existing single-family homes are permitted use. So you can do whatever you want with your existing single-family home. You can add on to it, you can triple it in size, whatever you want to do, and you'll still be compliant. So that kind of sort of, we'll call it grandfathering, it's an imprecise term for it, but that kind of thing can be integrated into an ordinance to soften the blow of becoming non-conforming.
So it wouldn't affect their insurance and stuff like that? if they
Exactly,
were-
that's part of the point of that.
Yeah.
Is that when they're trying to get insurance or there's some other underwriting activities that can be affected by that, then they can point to the ordinance and say, look, I'm allowed to rebuild my building if a tornado knocks it down, and I'm allowed to add on to it if I need more space for my customers. So that's just something that we'd have to be mindful of and integrate into that amendment.
I like the idea of it, especially since we're trying to bring a more pedestrian-friendly, walkable feel to that, right? Because having the parking lots tucked away, my brother lives in Worthington, and a lot of their buildings are like that, and it gives a different feel, and it looks pretty, right? Instead of staring
Sure.
at cars. But I'd love to see what that language looks like.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
can,
would just add, I mean, we talked about this when you spent a lot of time during the master plan development around other ways to do traffic calming, or at least the
Sure.
idea of vehicles feel like you're entering a downtown area, and that is kind of a miss coming from that way, right?
right.
So, I mean, this, especially with the empty lot is part of that, right? You mentioned across from bar or whatever that is.
Something's gonna get built there eventually.
Something will get built there, so I'm not opposed. I'd love to kind of flesh it out a little bit more. And as long as we're protecting those businesses that were built already that way, then I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. All right, so I will provide example language for that.
And would that language require, so, maybe I'm not understanding fully, but are we asking them to have the same build to line on specifically those properties as like the city center, essentially? And then-
Yeah, essentially. It's a little more of a it's a range
Okay.
in the CMD, but we'd be matching the rest of the CMD district.
And then, because a lot of times in the city center, from what I recall, the parking is supposed to be behind the building, but the examples we've kind of talked about, if they bring the building of Clausen, is it Clausen Grill? Gosh, I forget. The one that they're seating outside, the parking lot's on the side, would that be an issue? Is that something how do we address moving the building to the front, allowing them to keep the parking on the side, trying to best bring that configuration into vision, I guess?
Yeah, they would definitely have to be providing access to the parking that now moved to the rear. So there's a few different ways we can do that, and I'll see what's in there already that would address that. And then
So we
can-
wouldn't essentially let them just sneak a little, I'll just use that building for an example. If they wanted to bring, let's say they're 30 feet away from the front lot line, and they wanted to bring that to the lot line without having to tear anything down, and they still met parking standards, would they be able to keep their parking lot there? If
On
they
the
wanted to
side.
just bring that building to the lot line, would
Yeah,
that
I think
ordinance allow it?
I think they would be able to, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
To clarify, were you talking about Tavern on Main?
Tavern on Main,
Okay.
sorry.
I was
Yeah.
just trying to make
Yes,
sure.
that's the right
Okay,
one.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Clausen Grill hasn't been around in forever, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I knew it was wrong when I said it, I just couldn't
Different
think of the right
district, so I
one.
was like, I was just clarifying.
Sorry about that, guys.
Which results in more parking, having the 35, excuse me, what is it now for CMD? I lost it.
It's a 45 to 65-foot range.
Yeah, 45, like, which results in more parking, having the 45 feet setback or the parking standard itself?
the parking standard itself really is gonna drive that. 45 feet gives you enough room for one bay of parking and a maneuvering lane. 65 feet gives you enough room for 2 bays of parking and a maneuvering lane.
So like
And-
Old Port,
Yeah, Old Port I think is even more than 65 feet.
Yeah.
okay.
But yes, they do have 2 bays and a maneuvering lane. But ultimately, yeah, it's the parking requirement for the use that drives the amount that's required.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should try to protect parking at a high level.
Yeah, but you weren't gonna change the parking standards with that, were you?
That wasn't, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not intentionally, I'm just, in my mind, it could be that having a 65-foot setback, you know, trumps the parking standard. It effectively makes you have more parking spaces than our own parking standard would have, perhaps. I don't know, and I'm sure it's lot specific, but, you know, that's one consideration. Another consideration I was just thinking about is that when I drive by Old Port and I see there's open parking spaces there from the road, it's sort of, this is my green light, I'm going to Old Port. If it's tucked away and it's, you know, not apparent, maybe that helps business, I don't know. It's something I would appreciate other people's input on, what is the better for the city and the businesses.
I think that's a fair point. But it's a difference of downtown, I think, a little bit too, right? If you're going downtown to eat, you're kind of not assuming that you're going into a parking lot. You know what I mean? A little bit. But
Parking lot for the specific building, you mean?
right, right,
Be a
like you're,
general shared parking lot.
yeah, so you're kind of assuming that I'm gonna find a spot as close as I can to where I wanna eat
I
and,
feel like, and this could just be an emotional feeling, but I feel like there have been cities where I go to where everybody's looking for parking and there's no transparency to where the actual open spots are. So people just drive around, you know, in not chaos, but just kind of frustration. And then there's other cities where like you can see where the parking spots are, you go there, you know.
that's a fair point, yeah.
So
In
if
that
it's
way, I'm
hurting-
trying to think about that open lot, like, you know, so a restaurant gets built there, right? Like, how do we'll have the parking standards. The parking lot would go in the rear, which would I don't wanna say protect, but it would give more space before the residential. I think there's houses right there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm just, yeah, I mean, like, my first perspective is like, okay, that is what I can potentially see happening most immediately with that. So to your point, I mean, it is good. I mean, the parking visibility is one thing, but either way, the parking standard will dictate how much parking's really built on a new property. But then where does overflow parking go on that side of the building? Is it gonna go to Old Port? Are those named spots for Old Port? Like, that's a unique
Yeah.
area, just because there's not, I mean, we talked about add more on-street parking, there's some in front, but
Yeah,
I
it's all,
maintain that one of Clausen's charms is you can get in and out of the city less painfully than you can get in and out of others, and you can get to where you want to go. And I've never been able to articulate why I think that's true, but going through this exercise, I'm thinking like, if I can see parking spots, that helps. And if there are enough of them, that helps. If we lose either of those things, so I'll be hypothetical, the Old Port parking requirement per our ordinance requires 10 spots. But because of the 65-foot or whatever it is setback, it allows for 20. So we get more than is required by our ordinance, which makes it nice, you know. If in that very specific situation, we pull it forward, we'll effectively lose parking spots for the lot optimized plan in the future. A developer that would tear it down and put something in new, the result would be fewer parking spaces, perhaps, you know. That's what I'm trying to conceptualize.
Not if there's a parking standard, though. If they have to meet the parking standard, they'll develop and design to meet the parking standard.
Correct.
Right, so.
He's saying that he thinks that Old Port kind of might have more than the standard, so it seems more.
There may be cases.
Yeah, maybe, I mean,
Yeah, you could lose spaces,
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you're over parked on a site and no one else can use those spaces because it's a private lot,
That may be a problem too.
what does it give you, really? I mean, it's, you just have extra parking spaces that aren't being used.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying, and I agree. I've talked to many residents in Royal Oak that are like, I don't go out to eat in Royal Oak, I go out to eat in Clausen,
Yeah.
because it's easy, and parking's nice, and you don't have to spend 20 minutes doing it. So I agree, but I also, I've been to cities where even their grocery store is to the Build 2 line, and, it's right up at that sidewalk, and I never didn't go to the grocery store because I thought, and I'm not trying to be like dramatic about it, but like there was spots I knew I could go in the grocery store and get out of the grocery store because it still had its own dedicated parking lot, which I think that is beneficial, right? Like knowing that it's not a shared parking, you're not sharing it with the whole city. It was helpful to just give confidence that I'm not walking 2 blocks with, groceries and kids, right?
I think that's huge.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question about, I mean, you have 2 separate districts with 2 separate purposes, and I guess even if you look at the write-up of what central mixed use is, it says it's a transition area. So why do you want it to mimic a different city center area if its whole purpose is to transition out of city center and into a residential?
Yeah, it's a fair question. The CMD district actually has a 0 lot line setback everywhere else in the district. This is the only part of the district that's different. And it's mostly a matter of, do we think this area is ultimately kind of an extension of the downtown, or are we thinking of it as more of a kind of suburban style, everything's set way back kind of area? That's
you
kind of
kind-
what it is now.
You kind of established that, though, with the on-street, the changes in the on-street parking, right? It's still, that's mimicking your downtown, so it's still signaling to people
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
in
The
a.
fabric of downtown
Yeah.
continues as far as the right of way is concerned.
Yeah, so I mean, that holds your similarity, but, I mean, to your point, I think also, and not to shame in any way, shape, or form, but the Old Port feels like it's an old school, older clientele. They want to be able, I mean, there's no disrespect to that whatsoever, it's just, that's the matter of it.
They may be in wheelchairs or walkers, and they don't want a long
Yeah,
walk.
I mean,
They like close to the restaurant.
And I'm not saying
parking.
you make long-term plans on an aged population, entirely, because that's not, long-term planning, but it's already fitting a narrative the way it is. I mean, I'm not like grossly opposed to it. Like you said, it might take decades for something like this to actually change.
Most
So does
likely,
changing the ordinance really do anything other than give opportunity in the future? But you do have an empty lot that could then look really different if it's the only one following, and then you have no flow. So I don't know, just throwing that out there.
Can I pose a question? What does the DDA envision on the future of the downtown? I mean, do they see it growing and expanding, or do they want to keep it?
Yeah, I mean, the
like,
DEA.
what is the city also envision? I mean, are we cool with just maintaining the downtown as is, or do we envision growing upon it?
Yeah, I mean, the DDA, broadly speaking, is always kind of looking for the downtown to grow to the extent that it can. I mean, let's just say there are internal prospects for growth in our downtown. It's sort of a matter of what happens with the properties that have been fallow for a long time. We certainly have potential. But yeah, I mean, the DDA's long-term vision is definitely for growth in the downtown.
That's where they get their taxes too.
I'm just saying, not even just the DDA, that was probably the wrong way to phrase it. I mean, how does the city?
Well, and we
how do
did,
see it?
right? We kind of, that's what core residential was. It was
Right.
to build up and I did look, Joe,
Well,
we
core-
did expand bring things in 2021 too.
Yeah, core residential, so core residential its biggest area is on the northeast edge of downtown, which used to be zoned multifamily, like that whole area. It was a huge area that was zoned multifamily, and it was brought down to core residential. So that was the intent there was to kind of create that like softer transition area.
But also allow a little bit of that mix of downtown feel, right?
Right,
Like that was
exactly.
supposed to be like you can kind of do the mix of like, hey, it was a house, but now it's a coffee shop kind of thing, right? Where it
Right,
could-
exactly.
You transition that commercial use over time without overbuilding, from what I understand.
And that's
without
exactly
overdeveloping
what
and
it was
building.
trying to do, yeah.
So that downtown can grow a little bit. So I think that there is the intention, maybe not 3 foot high grow downtown to expand, but expand by way of smaller things. And I do, to your point, I do like the feel when you're leaving a little bit, things feel less dense when you're hitting like Old Port and that, and it does kind of give a feel of like sometimes comfort if you don't like busy traffic, or it does serve its purpose as a transition. So I do agree with you on that point. So
I'm in favor of keeping it, honestly, because I think that is a very effective way to preserve that transition feel. I also sort of wonder if we're putting a target on the diversity of our downtown area, because if you allow a 5-foot setback, let's just say, in CMD where Old Port would be, like overnight, so many developers think I can put an apartment there. It's so much more suitable for an apartment, and before you know it, everything is an apartment. Right now, those setbacks, as Joe was sort of indicating indirectly, discourage overdevelopment of apartments, I think. But there are cases where it would be good to have an apartment in a certain lot, maybe, and I just feel like if that happens situationally, that's a great use of a variance. If that's what situationally, the ZBA and the Planning Commission would want to do.
you mean DDA?
What did I say?
ZBA?
Sorry, yes.
Okay, just make sure.
So, I think it keeps the decision-making, within the boards and commissions instead of just carte blanche, do what you want to do, developer. Because it's unfortunately, we're at a very capitalistic time where what should be on a piece of property, if you ask Wall Street, is the highest grossing per square foot business, period. If we would allow casinos, it would be casinos. But we're trying to preserve the character of the town here. So I think we've got to be cautious about what could indirectly happen if we allow too much leverage there. But that's all I have to say.
Joe, can I ask a question? I don't know if it's the correct business or not. So in that zone, we're talking about next to that currently empty lot, it says Clausen Legacy Dental. Why, do you know the history of why that, front setback is, they're like pretty close? It looks like more like 15 feet, 20 feet.
I feel like that might have office zoning, Nick.
Was it previously a different zone when it was built? Sorry to put you on the spot, because I'm just trying to think, again, I just because it's the lowest hanging fruit, that
Yeah.
empty lot, I'm trying to think about the development. And the only reason I'm still in favor of what Joe's talking about was reducing that front setback was just because it would force more parking in the rear where we have those residential homes behind it. I do get the implications for if Old Port was knocked down tomorrow, right? Or if they decided to build an additional 20 feet in front of them, that obviously you do lose some of that parking in front. So I'm not disregarding that fact. I think it's relevant and worth talking about. I'm just trying to think about the most immediate possibility in this area being the empty lot, and there is this kind of weird building next to it that doesn't adhere to the rest of it either. So to the idea of it being a transition area, it's like it's still kind of choppy, right? At least
Yeah,
in this
I mean, the
direction. Because that's what we're
breakdown-
talking about, is this small portion of downtown, right?
Sure.
We're not talking about the extension of like the south side.
Wait, you are talking about the south side, right? The south side of
Yeah,
14th,
this
not
South
the
side of
north
14th,
side.
No,
sorry, I
no, the
mean,
north side has another
I was thinking of
setback.
south, like Maine, when I said that.
Okay,
Not-
okay, sorry, I was like, I've been
South side
looking
of
at the wrong
14
map the
still,
whole time.
yeah. But that was just a unique, I'm like, well, this empty lot is also next to what looks like something that's out of compliance today.
You're talking about what's next to Bellevue?
Yeah,
Yeah, that
so-
one.
yeah, because I think Bellevue is where this zoning ends, right? So that's technically as far as we're talking about making this district feel like downtown. Old Port, Renshaw, those are all set back, and then there's this empty lot. And it's
Yeah.
very small, it's comparatively to like Old Port, it's a small lot anyway, so I'm trying to think of whatever we do will kind of dictate what might go there if it ever does get developed.
Sure.
So I don't know what the history was with the,
I think it was zoned something different when it was built. It was built.
so to Aaron's point, maybe we brought it into this district recently?
I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay, that's fine, I
just think based on when it was built, it was probably zoned differently
Mhm.
before it was CMD.
all right.
Yeah, yeah, most likely. Okay, there's also a note in here about height, in CMD. We did have some support for adding a third story there. We're also talking about the ground floor, parking, and that would permit a third floor within the existing height limit. So, you know, maybe that's kind of something we want to just do first and then kind of let that be like the kind of halfway point, I guess. I don't know if that's just something we want to table until we get through the rest of the ground floor parking discussion.
Nobody wants to touch that one.
Yeah. Just
It's,
see.
it's hard to change it so
Yeah.
much at once, right? Without
Sure.
actually being able to visualize how one builds on another. I support that.
Yeah. So
I do think that would be our best avenue for listening to residents, but also we're looking at parking. We're not carte blanche, like allowing taller buildings in this area, because that's not something that we generally heard from residents. Or is that what you're saying, the master plan survey did say that?
the master plan survey did say that a third floor was acceptable to most people there.
Okay.
But we can, we've already established that we can accomplish that by just lowering the first floor ceiling height.
Exactly,
restriction,
yeah.
And still keeping the overall structure height.
Right, that's a good
So-
point.
And
Well, and I d-
and that can still piggyback on all the same requirements for under building parking. It'd still have all the same height requirements.
Right, yeah, exactly. So I think if we finish off that ground floor parking thing first, and that can be your sort of first step in that direction, and then ultimately, might be 5 years from now, you say, okay, well, now we're ready to go a little further or something, depending on what happens between now and then. But yeah, we can finish off the ground floor parking first and then see if it warrants being revisited later.
Well, and can I just ask for a point of clarification on, was it something that in the survey it was liked or something that they would accept? I guess, I don't know because there's kind of two different ways of looking at it, I guess. Do we remember?
I would have to look back at how it
Yeah.
was worded.
Okay.
The other thing in here is this CR district just nailing down the actual number of units that you'd be permitting. Because as we established, it's not real clear right now.
Well, and sorry if I already brought this up when we were talking about it, but when we were talking about, the, like the brownstone type of townhome developments, I was more so envisioning, clusters of them and not like 33 highly dense, like one building. Is there a way we can look at even like our single-family side-by-side attached definition or something? I mean, I'm just, was I the only one that was envisioning like, you know, more so like maybe 5 or 6 together, you know, with a little bit of space between instead
That's what the
of,
drawings
That's
look
how I
like,
envision it too.
was the idea.
You said it yourself. They'll find a way to optimize.
yeah, yeah. Because it's hard to envision
I
such a
agree.
dense, and I know we're not talking about the site plan, but like 33 in that space seems like very dense to me. And I don't think that that's the density that I at least was thinking when we were talking about it. It's very dense.
But were they all combined?
Oh, I don't know. I never
Yeah,
saw
so
the
we can't-
actual-
Yeah.
But I'm thinking they had to be pretty compact in order to fit 33 on a, what was it, an acre?
Oh, it's larger than that. It's
Oh.
larger than that.
Yeah, it's
How-
1.6 or something. like that, but-
1.6 acres. They have to be pretty dense.
So possibly like maximizing the amount of continuous dwelling units or something?
I don't know, I was just wondering if anybody else had that same sentiment when they envision, you know, attached townhomes. You know, most of the time when you see them, they've got, you know, maybe 6 or so attached at once, and then you've got a little green space and some thoroughfares there, and, you know, it seems, I know we talked a lot about, especially in that one particular place, you know, the buildings are the same height as a house, but it's a lot different to have 6 homes there versus 33 homes there, looking
Very
at
sure,
you.
they're definitely.
So I feel like I wasn't imagining it being so dense, but maybe it was just me, I don't know. I was just curious. Since we're bringing up the CR district and the language to modify it, I definitely agree, RM1, but I almost feel like there
Better
should
than
be a
that.
little bit more language to convey what we're looking for, but I don't know.
Or more conservative density.
Yeah, I mean, our density is kind of hard to, it's complicated for me anyway to figure out the density there, right? And I know that by way of asking for clusters or some sort, that would lessen the density. But I feel like, I don't know that we want something much more dense than that in that core residential area in general, right? Because it's supposed to be a transition. It's not supposed to feel like RM1, RM2. It's supposed to feel like a little bit of a softer transition. That was at least my thoughts on that since talking last.
Yeah, to serve that output, that outcome, you know, that vision, it seems like it's pretty dense.
And I don't think we've really talked a lot about language, Joe, have we, for the single-family attached dwelling units side by side?
No, not really. I mean, it's never really come up before.
I know it's something we talk about in, like, our dreams. We'd love to bring these other missing middle type housing, and I feel like maybe it's something we could play with a little bit and kind of just put a vision down together. I know we've looked at photos of it, right, in our master planning and stuff. Is anyone else feeling the same way, or I don't mean to ever speak for the whole commission, but I didn't know if anybody else was feeling that way of density.
I mean, I guess I have to see it. I really don't know what 33 units looks like on that lot until it's plotted out. I mean, the only existing, like, development like that is, I think, on 14 Mile across from Bellevue, right?
Yeah, like immediately east of
Yeah.
downtown,
Those
yeah.
are probably like, what, 4 or 5 units each? I don't know.
I'm trying to envision.
I
what you're
think
talking-
each building's 4 units, if I'm not mistaken. There's a little, it's mostly surrounded by like a pretty heavy hedge.
Oh,
Yeah.
towards
It's next to
like
Nor.
7-Eleven and stuff there? Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. And that's
So-
a cute little community, I think.
I
Yeah.
don't know how many units are in there.
If fewer than I think they would build today on the same footprint.
It's,
It's pretty, Your standard.
It does, I mean, it looks like what I would envision, but thinking, I don't know how big that lot is there, but thinking even 30, I can't imagine they have 33 there. It just seems like it would give a completely different feel, where that almost feels like a little community within a community in a good way, where it's on 14 Mile, but I would feel safe buying a house and not worrying about my kids. Like, it just feels like a nice little,
Done right, it looks nice.
Yeah,
It works
yeah.
properly. Do our ordinances drive that or govern that? I don't know.
that's what I'm curious about,
I
yeah.
don't think they do. I think it requires a whole nother discussion, and I would support it. I think it's necessary, especially with the future land use map being what it is. I mean, if we have another light agenda, Joe, could we put that on there?
Well, the next agenda is not gonna be the one.
I thought last meeting you said this wasn't normal.
We might have lied to you, just to get you to come back.
You signed a contract, right?
Oh, city council. But it's fun, right?
So Oldport.
It looks
Next
like
best
the
thing.
buildings in Maple Grove are generally 4 units. There's a couple that seem a little different. There's like one that's 2, and there might even be one that's 6.
I mean, that would be so great in that little spot, wouldn't it?
It's over 33.
Is it?
It's
Yeah,
definitely over 30.
Yeah, it's,
Is it?
I counted,
It's probably 50 or 60.
yeah.
50 or 60? I guess I've never gone back in there that far.
It's bigger than you think.
Yeah.
it-
I've
Yeah, I
only
would
turned
s-
around there once.
I would say it's probably, the land is, it's a little bigger.
That's 58, I think.
I'm
Yeah.
curious now, I'm gonna have to pull it up and
It's
see
a
how big
little
that-
bigger than the church site.
2.5,
It's 2.5 versus 1.6.
about half acre larger.
It's about a half acre larger than the
Okay.
Maple
that
Grove
church
is.
site.
It's just, the layout is different though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they utilize it
Maple Grove,
well.
There's more space for moving, where this is just one long strip.
It's an L, yeah.
And it feels more like a neighborhood versus, you know,
It's because the way that they could do the drive lanes.
right. So this is just different in terms of the lot itself, because it's more narrow and things, right? Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we move on to this master plan implementation portion here? So we've got a number of things in there, but I try to focus on just a couple so that we don't overwhelm ourselves. I mean, I do have to be able to like produce things from meeting to meeting, so if we put too many things in the bucket, it starts to become a little heavy to carry from one meeting to another. So I broke out sustainability action items that are in one way or another related to zoning. Some of them are more directly zoning related than others. And what I've done is I've color coded them. So we had residents prioritize these things in a survey. And the color coding here represents how they prioritized them. So high priorities were red, medium priorities were green, and low priority items were blue. Items in, I'm supposed to say black, it says clack. Items in black are drawn from the action items table and weren't explicitly prioritized by survey takers. So those were things that we kind of came up with to support some of the other objectives and goals. So really, the idea here is like to pick a subset of these things to work on and then try to move forward with those and then have kind of the next subset lined up when we're finished with them. So I think perhaps the obvious thing is to look at the red items first. But I'm curious to hear about your thoughts about, you know, what we should be looking at, and maybe there are some non-red items that would actually pair well with the red items because they're similar topics. So it is broken down by the areas of interest in the sustainability plan. So there's items related to water, items related to energy, items related to waste, items related to transportation, items related to land use and community design, items related to emergency preparedness, social sustainability, and economic sustainability. Social sustainability is a little less directly affected by zoning. The goals that were listed in there, they're not really, they're more advocacy related. Same with economic sustainability. Our decisions about what we permit in our city affect our economic sustainability, of course, but nevertheless, there were not any directly zoning related action items under that item. So just looking at the red items, I kind of wanted to walk through those and see how we feel about making that kind of our first batch of things to look at in terms of trying to move forward some of these sustainability items. So one was develop incentives for alternative stormwater management. Options that can contribute to filtering water before it enters the system should be emphasized. So this is not just a zoning thing. You can obviously touch this from a lot of different directions. One of them would be engineering, of course. But from a zoning perspective, you would look at how we handle landscaping primarily here. And there may be some other things that we can look at as well.
The preservation of an impermeable green space is the biggest tool in the box, right?
Yes, but Clausen's green space is somewhat less permeable than a lot of other green space because we live on a filled-in wetland. Berkeley, where I live, has the same exact problem. So the fill is a lot denser than like you don't have sandy loam or anything where the water goes straight in. There's a lot of clay. So green space isn't automatically super permeable here, but it's obviously more permeable than pavement, you know? So some of it could be different ways that we can hold water that don't involve putting in a super expensive underground system. It might involve rain gardens. It might involve actual storage facilities that are part of the building. Are there things that we can do to encourage, incentivize that kind of stuff? Maybe there's some things that we could even require. Obviously, you don't want to make projects infeasible by requiring something that's going to like add to the so much to the cost that it's just not worth it anymore. But there's a lot of different things that we can look at, and I could kind of produce a little report on the things that we might consider doing in the ordinance that could help improve that situation.
Is there a specific zone that you're thinking of?
Most likely, you'd be looking at least most of the city, if not all of it.
Because I put together something. So do we connect new builds to the main, you said we connect it to the main water, right? Or the main storm drain?
Currently, it's being directed to add a storm structure in the rear of every home. And that's going to the combination system at the road.
And that's just
Right.
on residential, right?
That's residential. And then non-residential properties are also being directed to the same combined system. It's just that, so legacy development generally has very little water that's holding on site. It might have a catch basin in the middle of a parking lot. Everything goes into that and then goes more or less straight into the combined system. Newer projects have typically underground detention where they're holding more of that water on site underground before it goes into the system, and it is metered into the system. There's a flow restrictor, and that flow restrictor keeps all of that water from going in at a high volume. It comes out of your on-site system at a low volume. So as you have sites develop over time or redevelop over time, you'll get more of those stormwater storage systems placed underground that will ultimately reduce the overall single event burden on your mains. And that's, of course, a benefit over time because it means less chance of backups and flooding.
I was surprised that we still have residential homes to me, I feel like residential homes could have their own little retention. I put my own retention, or wait, is that the right word?
Detention.
Detention. I always get,
Are any of the commercial, sorry to cut you off.
no, go ahead.
Are any of the commercial buildings that are being developed now, are they all retention or are there detention components as well?
I'd have to ask Mike about that, the engineer. I think it's primarily retention, but I don't know. I don't know that they're doing full-on detention systems.
Does the developer have the option to choose how they manage their water, the stormwater?
In some ways, yes. There are restrictions on the outflow and they're all tied to the county standards. And obviously, the directionality of how water flows on a site is regulated because it can't go off the site. It has to be going into catch basins on the site. I think driveways are an exception because they're sloped to the street. But otherwise, your parking lots and things are going to, and your downspouts are all going to your actual retention system on your site. In terms of how you do a retention system, the geometric reality of Clawson is that it's got to go underground for the most part because you just don't have enough room to do a pond on almost any site. The BRD2 district is the only place where you could realistically do a pond.
Because to Erin's point, can I say that
You can,
she was successful in creating her own retention system, right?
wait, was it retention or detention?
Detention.
Detention.
What's the difference?
Well, you corrected me and said detention, so I was just following you.
No, retention. Retention holds it and lets the ground percolate over time.
Okay, so mine was a retention.
Detention's the restricted flow. I mean, would it make sense, especially for single-family homes, would it make sense to offer up the ability to choose which path you go as long as it meets the standard? It's definitely it's less invasive to the existing overtaxed system, by that we're, putting a storm structure in and introducing more water to it. Especially some of these lots, I mean, they're more than capable of, retaining groundwater, provided that it's engineered properly. I mean.
Yeah.
They could call me.
And that's not a hard thing to do. I mean, I personally, I've done several of them. And on the flip side, I was forced to do the storm water, stormwater system hook up on a few homes I built in Clawson. So it's extremely expensive. And it's just, you're overtaxing us already. You're introducing more water to an overtaxed system.
Sure.
Why not?
Yeah, and if there are all retentions underground, I'm assuming?
Typically.
Okay.
Yeah,
'Cause
almost all, in a place like this, yeah.
And truly, when they're underground, I feel like having a retention system under there is good for the ground too, right? Because
Yeah.
it just allows it to as he was saying, I put over 500 gallons in my backyard because I was sick of it flooding. And I won't say it all, but so far I was successful. And it would seem like, I couldn't even, I don't want to tap into the sewer, the storm sewer, because I don't want the combined stuff coming in my backyard. But it would seem like that just is an easier, better, more friendly option, and it, like you said, it doesn't add to the burden. Is that something that has to be dictated by way of the engineers, or is that something that we can explore by way of the sustainability?
Well, our engineers work in the county framework, so I would have to talk to them and figure out like kind of what the options are. Because I don't know necessarily what the county permits and considers to be acceptable stormwater management, particularly on residential lots. So I could certainly talk to Mike and see what he says.
Obviously, there'd be standards, not like go put a bucket in the ground, right? But like, but it's worth exploring, I think, and it,
I don't know if there are any actual stormwater standards for residential homes. I mean, there are several communities around here that still, when developing new properties, Royal Oak for one, that they have zero stormwater requirements at all. And the main reason for that is because they don't want to overtax or introduce more water to a system that's, already overtaxed.
It may just be an agricultural runoff standard that they're holding them to or something like that, which is just sort of like if you leave the land, the amount of water that would flow off of it naturally is generally labeled the agricultural runoff standard.
like an acceptable amount.
Yeah.
But there's probably not, I don't know one off the top of my head, but I would think that there is a reasonable way to calculate that standard if we were to discuss and explore that. And I would think that, does the city or the county get to tell us what to do with that? If it's not going into their GW, whatever, their drains, do they get to dictate that to us?
I mean,
It's permeable soil.
at the residential level, I don't think so.
Okay.
But, I'll have that conversation.
We could lead the way for all of Oakland County.
I mean, it seems to me, everybody agrees our sewer system is overtaxed. And the increased density of the last 20 years, 30 years has only made it worse. And I'm not the authority on this, but as I understand it, the building requirements have not changed. So, the last change I'm aware of is you're not allowed to take your gutter water and put it into the sewer. Like you would concrete over the pipe that goes to the sewer. So now rainwater has to go surface.
You're talking about residential specifically?
Specifically to our
Yeah,
water.
like where your downspouts come down,
Yeah,
yeah. that's what he's
downspout.
talking
But
about.
they still tie it, what ties into that storm sewer then? A drain in the backyard? Where does that tie?
So
There's no storm
The storm
sewer.
system, the catch basin would tie into the combination sewer. In Clawson,
Okay.
it's a combination sewer.
Yeah.
Other cities, they have, some of them have separated systems, but Clawson specifically has a combination sewer.
Generally, as you go further out, the systems get separated, the legacy systems, Detroit, the inner suburbs, those are the combo systems.
So in that gathers from like, you have specifics to like a low point in the yard that gathers that,
Yeah.
and then that's mandated to connect. That seems crazy to me.
So essentially, all the sanitary sewers that, everyone's house is tied into, we're specifically introducing stormwater to it.
Yeah.
That's what,
Seems
With not
crazy.
allowing the actual land, the permeable soil to actually absorb
Permeate?
it. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
forcing water, stormwater,
Yeah.
excess amount of stormwater to a sanitary system.
And-
That's primarily used as a sanitary
Right.
system.
And all these communities with combined systems, they're all smaller now than they were back at their peak. Clawson used to have way more people living in it. Berkeley used to have way more people living in it. So part of the reason that things are worse now, though, is that we're bringing in more water from further out. As all these communities have developed further and further out, that water's still coming through our town.
Yeah.
So that's in the system as well,
Yeah.
and it,
And I
you
know we
kinda get
talked
the
about
brunt
this
of it when
before,
you're
because it
further
kind
in.
of feels a little bit like, well, we could do everything to fix ours, but we'll still get theirs. But I
Right.
do think that it's worth exploring that, especially because why flush it down the toilet when it could, like you said, be used in a permeable way
Sure.
in your own backyard, essentially.
We're also seeing, changing weather patterns, and I think they just changed the 100-year flood
To a
requirement too, or something. Didn't they just change the 100-year flood
yeah, because
because we're seeing so much more rain?
the 100-year flood, like, every 5 years,
Right.
the frequency of it changes. It's, yeah, we're getting much more, you're getting fewer overall rain events, but each rain event itself is worse than it used to be.
Yeah.
And that's what taxes,
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly, because you get all the rain at once instead of having it parceled out over days. like
Which
you
really
used
is
to.
great for retention systems, right? Because then you got all the time in the world to let it just drain. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's ultimately what you want, is these things kind of going into the system slowly over time.
So my question, Joe, for R1, R2 districts, if there's a new house going in, do they have to put in some retention underground?
I don't think there's an actual system that keeps water.
Catch base, yeah, it doesn't.
Whatever, catch basin.
It's a
whatever.
catch basin that ties
The
in.
answer is yes,
Yeah.
it is required on every new home.
You
A
have to
catch
put it.
basin system going into the combination sewer system is required.
Yeah.
It is required through
There's no
engineering.
retention. It's
And-
going into the sewer.
Then there's also, if you have a sump pump, that's also going out to the system. And that, what that does is that's got a, typically a perforated pipe going around the base of the house. So things will seep into that, into your sump pump system. So that's also sending water that's infiltrating into the ground out to the system. So the more that you can keep out of the system, the better off you're gonna be. I think it's definitely worth exploring. And I think in the green item below that, incentivize low-impact development, that goes a few different ways, but it can include systems like this, so we can kind of look at those together as like a, how do we try to arrest as much of this stormwater as we can before it's filling up our pipes?
Yeah, and is the sustainability committee still a committee, or did you guys dismantle, or like, is there an official,
I don't know the status, I don't know if there's any,
Josh, weren't you on that?
met in a while.
Oh, okay, but it still exists,
Yeah, it hasn't disbanded, but
okay,
there hasn't been a need to meet.
okay.
There has been some appetite, so, I mean, I don't know how we should probably talk about that, right? Like, in general, is that committee still going to have a representative from city council or someone from Giffords or what? Or if it's just kind of community run? Because I've had people who were part of that committee ask me kind of what's the update, what's the latest? And then there's a lot here that we're gonna talk about, obviously, that's all zoning related, but there's a ton that's just grassroots, kind of like community involvement and
yeah.
stuff, so.
There's stuff that we can't really do at this body.
Right.
So it's sort of a
So I think
matter
it's
of-
worth,
Well, we could always, I wonder if there's any appetite to do like a citizen type committee thing too, right? I don't know what that looks like, but,
yeah, I mean, we had a representative from city council, we had myself, we had somebody from Giffords, and then everybody else was residents, so.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if that we need formally to have something through the city, or if we just somehow spin it off, right? Make a Facebook group and.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be kind of cool to do that, to implement certain aspects of that too, and maybe even show certain things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because, but I think in order to affect change zoning and policy wise, it'd be nice to have you guys still tap in. Because, yeah, I still think it'd be great to have some type of, I don't know what's going on with Grant, in what the rec, master plan, I know they presented, that was a long time ago. But, if there's any appetite to do some of those implementations, like the rain garden type things, would be cool to get the community together and implement some stuff like that, right? If that's still a thing.
We bug Nick every once in a while about stuff like that, so, yeah. We'll just have to formalize how we go about the kind of like restarting a committee. And I would like to get your perspective, Joe or Nick, just like, do we need representation from official bodies, or, that's probably something that we're worth exploring, and then having some kind of announcement on.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So I'm not yelling from my
Yeah.
seat, sorry. Yeah, so, and I'm trying to remember when that was started in 2021,
Yeah. like,
maybe
I don't
even
remember either.
2020.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so I think it was formally created to do the sustainability report. And then I don't know if the intent was to keep it going. So I think if we do that, it would probably be best to memorialize it, excuse me, to have it be set positions, set representatives. That way it's something that we can continue to use and operate with. Does that make sense?
No, that works. I mean, obviously, I'd be willing to be a part of it again, and
Yeah.
I think it always goes a bit further when you have involvement from the city too. So it's, I mean, there's tons of ways that regular
course.
citizens can get involved in
Yeah.
kind of sustainable efforts, but it helps a lot when we're kind of connected on things. And I know, you know, we talked about doing native gardens at one of the parks, or, you know, like you said, if there's I don't know, some rain barrel program, we missed Arbor Day, like those are all events that like typically are tied to the city.
Yeah.
So, thank you, yeah.
But Nick, I'm sorry, just go back 2 steps. So this catch basin thing, is it ubiquitously agreed to that that is the absolute best thing that can be done to prevent sewer backups?
I can't say that with any bit of confidence just because that's not my background.
Yeah.
It's what we've required with all of our new build homes since I can remember. And again, as Joe was talking about, we as in the city of Clawson don't have our own engineering standards. We just use the counties, just 'cause it's a lot of the same contractors do work in Oakland County, so it's easy to just duplicate information.
Okay.
I don't think that's even necessarily the intent of it, is to prevent backup though either.
I mean, I think part of the intent is to, we get, especially during the spring, a lot of complaints about just water flooding people's backyards, right? And so this gets rid of the water from backyards into the system. And so that is one of the main points.
I think it just gets, the main intent, from what I understand, and I think probably correct me, it's just so the water doesn't run on other properties. I mean, that's literally it. It's
Well, yeah,
not-
to get water out of the backyards.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
like from going on your property to somebody else's, yeah.
Yeah, which there's so to that point, I think, like what he was talking about, what I was able to implement with your help, thank you for bringing that. You brought a 375-gallon bladder to my backyard. I was able to implement that as a way of a retention, and it doesn't go into the system at all, and it's allowed to just permeate underground. I think that there's a lot of better options out there that just, maybe, it's nothing official, I didn't get a permit, but, you know,
You don't need a permit for that at this point.
yeah,
Well, let me try to land this and then we
Sure.
can move on. But, so I would like to say to my neighbor, if they ask, that everything can be done from a zoning perspective and from an ordinance perspective to prevent your sewer backing up into your basement is being done. That is the biggest concern I have.
That's
is-
when we need retention, right? Like, so the catch basin's there, but there's no retention and slow feedback into the
But
system.
if the priority of our ordinances and our zoning indirectly is to prevent water from pooling in the backyard or going to my neighbor's backyard for aesthetic purposes or what have you, I think we need to revisit that. And it's an engineering question. Like, what is the most modern technology available to prevent sewer backup? Like, I have not heard it reviewed at this level. So if you could help us with that, I think that is a precursor to this conversation of, is there something we should do in the red line item highlighted your issue you're talking about, Joe? Is there an area that we could prioritize future housing, wherever it goes, that it would have this system or that system to prevent it? And frankly, is the system that we are using across the board now the best thing to do to prevent sewer backup? And I'm arbitrarily saying I don't care about pooling water in the backyard because all I care about is sewer backup in my basement. And that may be debatable. Some people may feel differently. But from what I've heard in public comment, the big thing is I hate carrying carpet and trash and furniture to the front of the yard. So anyway, I don't need a rebuttal or, but if you can help us with some engineering consultant conversation at AEW, something like, we've thought about it and we recommend this to prevent sewer backup, or maybe this.
I feel like engineering might not have gone this way before though either. I would be open to exploring it. Like, and I'm just gonna use myself as an example, when I was trying to, and to your point, 3 feet of water in your garage is not good for your garage all the time. It's gonna start messing with the structure. So I can empathize with basements, but and anybody that I talked to, professionals that I called to my house, wanted me to put a sub pump back there. So I don't know, I feel like there could be something explored, but we might have to go out of the parameters of just the engineering directly. And I'm not saying don't talk to them, but I'm saying like, I would really love to explore it even further if it can take us that way.
I would like to make progress on the master plan as well, Joe, is what I'm saying. But to make progress on that line item, we need some feedback from the engineering community. What is the best option so that we can think about what to apply?
The system's called a dry well. It's often referred to as a dry well. It's a very common system. It's utilized in many other communities. I mean, the AEW, they're no stranger to it. I'm sure they've reviewed and engineered many, many systems. It's just, we just need to convey to them that needs to be one of our options, or possibly, only way to do it moving forward. I mean, these aren't just dig a hole and put stone in it. They're often engineered for, to be able to, first of all, you have to percolate the soil, you have to test the soil to see if it even can take on, that amount of water. That's the step
Because
one.
we are primarily clay, right? And water doesn't permeate well through
If you
clay.
dig down, I mean, that just changes the formula for how much volume you need. Really? So, one, you need to test the soil. Two, is an engineer actually formulates the amount of capacity in stone is required. So, I mean, it's very common, very common. We just need to
When
make
you're
it part of our
talking about
system.
incentivizing it too, I mean, you gotta think that the county's gonna want stuff off their system as well. So are there programs through either the Great Lakes Water Authority or through the county or whatnot that would offset costs to help homeowners that have existing issues, not just new builds, because how many new builds are you gonna have in the community? You have a maxed out community but if you're looking for ways to offset and incentivize stormwater management, then reaching out to our local partners to see, are there programs already in place, or can we work with them to establish them?
Yeah, so I know the county has I might butcher the name, but essentially a rain barrel program where they either provide the barrel or some type of financial support to get a rain barrel to connect to your gutters, and so you can collect water there, but obviously those are only so large and doesn't collect all the rainwater, but again, I think it's just getting some water off of the system. That's one piece to this entire conversation.
Didn't you say that it's more affordable to like do a dry well versus a tap in?
Depending on the requirements, it is. I mean, there's a typical, dry well system where it's literally, excavating and placing in a larger stone. Yes, that's more affordable. Now you can go overboard and require retention systems, that gets very costly. But I don't think a single-family resident, I can't speak for, on an engineering basis, but I don't feel that, that should be necessary for a single-family home.
What, a dry well?
A retention system.
Oh, a retention, okay.
Retention system. I mean, I've successfully done it several times with just just excavating in stone, so.
In what community? Do they have standards in those communities?
No, it's basically, typically, it's just designed by the engineer.
Oh, okay.
So, for one, Northville, the city of Northville they're very pro, the dry wells.
So, just so it's clear, I think Mr. Chairman has requested that certain members of the administration or consultants and code enforcement, maybe they will come and introduce themselves. Could we add AEW to this to come and present some of these options and review, is the current strategy the best strategy? Or if there are any alternatives?
I can't volunteer AEW, but I can definitely talk to them and,
In city council meetings in the past is that they're a great asset. They are, we don't competitively quote against them because they know the city so well, and so on and so forth. So I think it would be nice, you know, as we were talking about the sustainability component, to have them here. We pay them. So, and just, you know, the stormwater management is one question, both from a wisdom of dry wells, but also the current strategy where we have these catch basins that essentially tax the existing combined sewer as well. I mean, is that still the smart thing to do? Never mind if we would go the other direction of dry wells, but, you know, is that the right thing to do? And then thirdly, is there any worth or value to sewer backflow valves, which I understand may not be compliant today? So those three things I think would be very, very good to review and decide zone by zone where they would be beneficial.
all right, well, we have some things to explore there. We definitely will engage with AEW, and we have a call with them tomorrow anyway, so we can start the conversation there.
Great.
That's a big topic, so I don't know that we necessarily need to add anything else to it right now. But why don't we start with that? And I do want to get to the BRD1 district thing that we have in the memo here before we let you all go home. I just wanted to point out that we did establish some principles for that district. This is on South Main, near the border with Royal Oak.
Sorry, what page are you on?
Last
Oh,
page of the memo.
okay.
We've once again recommended a vacant property ordinance in a master plan. We'll see if we actually get one.
Why not? Can we know why it's not a implemented thing? Like, what makes it difficult?
I honestly don't know,
Oh, okay.
but
Can you, what is it exactly?
Vacant property.
What's it all about?
so it's basically an ordinance stating how property owners have to manage vacant property. And there's some property management or maintenance standards that the city already has for like cutting grass and stuff like that. But there are other things that you can do with a vacant property ordinance. It's not really my area of expertise, but I know it's kind of been kicking around in our plan recommendations for a long time at this point. So something that we can, we're still
where does
recommending.
it sit today? Like, how do we take action a little bit faster? Like,
It's not,
how has it been-
unfortunately, it's kind of outside the planning commission's purview.
Yeah.
Because it'd
It's
be a
the city
general, it'd be a
council.
general.
Even as a
ordinance,
city
yeah.
council, yeah,
it's a
item
general
on-
ordinance. So
Yeah.
it's a conversation that we had probably a little over a year, 2 years ago, and then it just kind of got fallen to the side. It's near the top of my list of things to talk to a city attorney about to re-engage and review. I think there were some disagreements we had on kind of how that was going to be presented to, but I don't know how schedule's going to line up, but I know it's something we've talked about bringing back to the ordinance review committee of city council. So certainly still on our radar, and it's something I personally really want to see, that we have some more standing when trying to enforce the vacant properties. And I know our new code enforcement officer, Chuck, would be very happy to see that in place too. So it's definitely on the radar.
Two questions on that. Is the objective to push to development, or, because what, if it's like, as far as like maintenance goes, how is that any different than our standard ordinance for
So
lawn care?
in my experience, there's been, I can't say every, but several lots that there's been a property owner, something happened to that property owner, and there's no contact information, there's nothing like that in place. So, we don't know who's responsible, we don't know who to contact, who to issue letters to, tickets to. So just kind of like the general consistency of maintaining the property in good condition while vacant. And then obviously, you know, with that set some type of fees, like, so we have the vacant property fee for residential homes. And so there's a monthly fee for inspections. And so just by paying a fee kind of incentivizes development or selling the property so they don't have to pay that for something that's not generating any revenue for them.
And at least making sure it's in compliance, and there's not rodents in there and leaking pipes or whatever else can go on.
After so many tickets, in the case that, like, so let's say a lawn doesn't get mowed, after so many tickets, does the city actually step in and cut the lawn and then back? Okay.
Yeah.
That's.
Yep. Well, if we do that, we'll issue an invoice to the resident or property owner. If it's not paid, it gets rolled into the taxes.
And that would work the same way ideally with a vacant building.
Yep.
Except for if there was no contact and there's a leaking pipe or an emergency or something at that building, that would get
That's-
complicated too, right?
Yes, that's why having this, it's having like a secondary point of contact as well, so there's not just one person
Yeah.
responsible for it, yeah.
I think you would find we have agreement to do that vacant or property ordinance, at least in the CC, right? I don't think we would,
In the what, city center?
yeah.
Oh.
From a zoning perspective, would we have any trouble supporting it in CC would be maybe a future contemplation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it would definitely cover the CC district and how, how even, I mean, I've seen examples of ordinances that even kind of talk about how you manage vacant buildings in a downtown. Like even allowing like the DDA to put displays in the windows and information, use those buildings for something, even though there's nothing going on in there, so it's another consideration
Why
that
not
could be made.
implement it citywide? On every
Well,
zone?
oh, yeah, I mean, I definitely think you could. The advantage in the downtown is that you do have an organization that can kind of manage those buildings, you know? So I know it's getting kind of late here. BRD 1 district, I did want to just, essentially, I wanted to start a conversation about the uses in that district and how that district evolves into the future. We've got a couple residential uses that are completely non-conforming there. You know, is it reasonable to write some grandfathering language for them or just permit small residential there? And then looking at the overall list of uses is something I think we should also do just to make sure that we're providing enough flexibility there that we can keep all these buildings occupied over time. Because right now the list of uses that you can do there is pretty small. Obviously, you want to be mindful of the intensity of the uses, right? Because they're small lots and there's residential right behind them. But then also looking at how it transitions to the lots behind. You know, generally speaking, there's not a lot of space. So I just wanted to know if you were. I mean, essentially, I'm just looking for a green light to kind of bring you something on the BRD 1 district and start that conversation.
Joe, can you remind me where that's at? I'll be
It's
that guy.
South Main,
South
just
Main.
north of the Royal Oak Line.
Okay, on both sides.
On both sides, yeah, so.
All the way
Church-
up to-
Church Clausen,
yep.
that one little,
Future
building
land
with like
use-
7 apartments in it as part of it, that tried to rezone to CMD.
Up to like Nakota, like the
I
pink.
think it goes all the way to Nakota.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay, just making sure.
Yeah, yes, it goes to Nakota, that's right.
Yeah, because this was our transitional, yeah. I would be supportive. I also think, I'll just say it, it might be helpful to explore, again, those single-family attached side-by-side. townhome style homes for this
Yep.
area too, because I think that's something we've explored, if I'm recalling right, at the time we were discussing this, this zone, because it's a great kind of transition as you move down there.
I'm sorry, can you remind me? I remember the applicant came in asking for rezoning. What was the rationale? Did he want additional stories?
They're a non-conforming use in the district.
Oh, right.
So they've had trouble getting loans and insurance and all kinds of other
Thank you.
stuff.
Yeah, I remember that now.
We did have somebody propose a 5-story building.
Maybe I just remember that remark. Yeah, okay.
Nick and I just sort of laughed at him. It was like, it's like a 70-foot deep lot guy. You know?
Never hurts to ask, I suppose.
All right, so I've got some things to work on. Next agenda is packed. There's a lot of stuff on the next meeting. So we won't be talking about any of this on the next agenda. But the agenda after that so far doesn't have anything on it. So the hope is that we can have some of this in front of you, a little report on the water. We'll get with engineering in the meantime. We could probably have the preliminary stuff on all these other districts as well for you to all look at and decide what you want to do with it.
Joe, is the next, did I read it right, that the core residential rezoning is coming back at the next meeting?
Yeah, I think they are on the next agenda.
The church?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know you can't ask them or whatever, but I would prefer personally to like get an idea of what that looks, kind of put some parameters
Want to
on,
look at a site plan,
no, not a site plan, just what we were talking about earlier in better defining our definition of single-family attached townhomes.
or? Right, okay.
Yeah,
They
and
may have a preliminary plot plan. I mean.
They might, but we
they
don't get to
probably
see
do,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, without having that defined more, so, and again, they're free to come as many times as they want. I personally would wanna feel like I'm better able to define the density and what that looks like by way of defining those things. Just putting that out there. I'm just one
Yeah.
vote.
I think we also need to define what the front and the side setback would be. It's been directly innuendoed that the
Front is
the
facing.
front is the side, but I think we need to either say it's clearly already written in our ordinance, or it's very vague in this unique lot application, or it would just not even be applying. So,
I thought we decided that by way of a street being labeled, that would be the acting new front, or no? Did we not?
but it
decide
doesn't
that?
work
No,
there.
No,
If you're
okay,
doing-
all
if
right,
you're
I don't
doing-
wanna rehash it.
if you're doing a
we-
driveway, that's not
Okay,
a
gotcha.
street. It doesn't become a front.
Right.
Can you put, on a rezoning, especially on a rezoning request, can you put conditions on a specific rezoning request?
The applicant, under state law, the way it works is the applicant can voluntarily offer conditions on a rezoning, such as, I will not build more than X number of units. I will have X setback here. I will not do any use other than these 5. Those are the kinds of conditions that they can voluntarily offer. A planning commission and city council or township board or whatever the body happens to be can't place conditions on a rezoning, but it can accept conditions that are offered voluntarily by the applicant.
Can we suggest that they offer?
Maybe
That-
they'll listen to our meeting.
That may have already been done. I don't know if they will come forward with some, but that has been part of the conversation.
Just before we switch gears, appreciate you obviously bringing forward like implementation of master plan items, right, that we have. I know we get very busy and it comes up when it comes up.
Yep.
Do you have any thoughts, or maybe you've done something with other cities around keeping a live progress update? For one, I know we can't have like a working document where we could all go to, but I would love to have something that we could refer back to. And even if you say these things are in, just so we don't have to go back to packets from months ago as we go through this.
I think that's pretty easy to
Even like a
do. I think if we
website or
put stuff in a
something.
spreadsheet and just include it in every packet to say, here's when we last talked about this, here's where
Right.
it is.
I
you
just think that
know.
would help us just stay on top of some of these items because
Sure.
they tend to disappear when we get busy, just candidly. And I know, I also wanted to make sure we come up with some type of formal check-in every year. I know we talked about that.
It's in our bylaws to do it in January, so we'll
Like creating
definitely be doing it in January.
Can we talk about creating a template or something maybe you've used in the past with other cities?
I do have templates, yeah.
Okay, great. I just would love to work on that before we get to, because January will be here
It's
before we
coming
know
fast.
it, right?
Yeah.
You're not kidding.
Thank you. Those are two kind of things that I would love to just
Sure.
formalize a little more.
Would that conclude your discussion period?
Yeah, we're kind of trying to get started, get rolling today, and now we've got to do the hard work.
Okay, do you have anything for the planners report this evening?
That pretty much was the planner's report. I will note the Michigan Association of Planning Conference is in late October, the 22nd through the 24th. It's in Kalamazoo this year.
Okay, thank you. And how about staff report and training opportunities?
So just to quick respond to Josh's comment earlier, I think it's something I could work with Joe on or just add it in the staff report so it's included there every meeting. Again, next PC meeting on the 14th is kind of a long agenda, so maybe the October 28th meeting, we can provide that to you folks and take a look at that for the master plan updates. The most exciting thing I can share with you today is that the city council approved the short-term rental ordinance after our many months and conversations that we've had. That's finally approved and done, and so we met this week with staff on how that's going to work and what we're going to be doing to do some routine inspections there of some of the short-term rentals. So I'm excited to finally be able to have something else to work on with maintaining short-term rentals. And there's not a ton of updates generally. A lot of the sites that are under development just continue to make progress. There's not anything major to write home about yet. Public safety's been using the 150 North Main property for some training. Fire department was there last Thursday and they'll be there again this Thursday with the city of Troy. And then that building should be coming down in the coming weeks. I can answer any questions.
I have one question.
Yeah.
There's a building that's being worked on South Main in Tacoma. Been under construction for a long time, and they're changing the facade quite a bit. Did they come in planning or in front of
Yes,
planning?
there was a site plan approved and they're working under a building permit that was approved with that site plan.
Was that like while ago?
Quite a while
I
ago.
believe it was,
Yeah.
Renewed that building permit a couple of.
Oh, okay. It was
Yes.
probably before me then. 'Cause
yes.
I don't
So,
remember seeing it.
So their delays was due to a tenant dispute that they've had, and so the tenant moved on, so then he had to just continue moving on with the building permit. So there's been that, and yes, it's taken a while. We're letting him know that we got to pick up the pace and get some consistent work there.
I don't even remember that. Do
And
we,
we'll see him again.
we will? Oh, so do we
It
know
was
what
loaded.
it
He's
is?
the only one who
Yeah.
was on the plan.
No, wait, I wasn't on there? That was 5, then that was.
Wait, was this not the loaded dice?
Yes,
Okay.
so there was an original site plan, I think, before
Wow.
the both of you, and then there was an amendment to it with
With
loaded
us.
dice, and that was just a review of all the facade.
Gotcha.
But yes,
What's the business? Is it changing business or?
so there's no tenants right now, so he's building it for suit. I believe there's gonna be 4 commercial / retail spaces
Okay.
available.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, 4.
Thank you.
With regards to the PNC, is there any way the city can put some rodent mitigation around the building before it comes down? I've heard that when you demolish a building that's been unoccupied for a while, it can drive a lot of rats to neighboring homes.
We can certainly have a conversation with the demo company. It's not something the city will do since it's private property. We can talk to them about what they can do. I know when they did their asbestos abatement, there was a ton of work that went on in there, so, but we can certainly have that conversation.
I started my trapping probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. I've gotten 2 over the time, so I'm getting better at trapping, but I'm expecting a lot more rats to show up. And
Come put a trap in my backyard.
experimenting with different baits at this point. I don't like the city's thing, because I think the city just puts out bait boxes with poison in them, correct? That's what I see around with all the drugstores and all the other commercial buildings, that little black box that I'm.
We have a pest control company, that's all I can confirm, I don't
Wait,
know.
do you kill them?
They put out poison in those things, and that's bad, because the rat dies, and the bird come and eat the rat, and the bird dies. So I trap them, I catch them in a live trap, and then I,
Oh, you're too nice.
Drown them in a
Yes, I
garbage
get it.
can?
All right, I think we're getting a little off
Okay, I
topic
can't
here,
do
guys.
that. No. I'm okay with the bait box then, okay?
it's the most humane way of dealing with them, is what I found.
I like to send a message.
Real tough guy, yeah.
I used to put a little check mark on top of the trap, how many I got every, I was doing chipmunks years ago.
Chipmunks.
Mr. Hara mentioned possibly getting someone from AEW to come in here and talk to us, or somebody from Oakland County to talk about water or anything else. We have our Charles Saramac as our new code enforcement officer. Just so everybody knows, I've contacted him 3 times now.
Yep.
Invited him to come to this meeting, just simply to meet with us, just to have a conversation, put a name to a face to the name, and no response from him, so.
Well, I spoke specifically with him about this, and unlike me, most people that work for the city have their Tuesdays open to do stuff, so he's had stuff planned out when we've had meetings, so I'm working with identifying a date. It's just not as easy as, hey, come to this meeting.
I
So,
get that, and I'm being really relaxed about it, but at least I would have thought I would have got an email back saying, sorry, I can't make it, or something like that. I hope he's treating the residents a little bit better.
He's doing that and then some.
Okay. Okay. Is that it for staff?
I'm all good.
I'm good. We have no legal report tonight because we don't have a lawyer. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make before we close this thing down?
Well, I would like to thank Joe and Nick for sticking with us through 2 years of short-term rentals. I'm very excited that we got it done. I think we did it right, guys, even though it took painfully forever, but I think we
For sure.
did a good job. So thank you guys
agree.
for not
Thank
giving
you.
up on us. And
I'll entertain a
nobody
motion.
else, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Motion support. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Harrow,
Yes.
Mr. Cusero,
Yes.
Ms. Lalonde,
Yes.
Ms. Redmond,
Yes.
Mr. Solomon,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
and Ms. Collins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.